I only knew of Hurley's involvement as a name at that time because he was the station chief in Cyprus. But all the station chiefs in Frankfurt and in Bonn and in Amsterdam and in Paris all knew about the operation.
A controlled delivery is a delivery where a courier carries a predetermined amount of heroin through security checkpoints with the knowledge and consent of the local law enforcement people. For example, the Germans in Frankfurt, the British Customs and Excise Service in London, to pass the heroin through on the way to New York and then on to Detroit or Houston or Los Angeles.
The drug trafficking occurred, as we understood at the time, at least once or twice a week. A courier would carry a suitcase, a brown Samsonite suitcase full of drugs from Cyprus to Frankfurt. There was an arrangement in Frankfurt with a baggage handler that the suitcase would be switched. He would come in and check in with a suitcase, a similar suitcase full of clothing. It would go through the security system. It would go down the chute down to the basement, and then one of the employees, Panam employees, the baggage handler, would switch a similar case full of drugs. It would go on board. It will arrive in Kennedy or Detroit, and then it would be sold in the local market.
Well, one of the routes I was familiar with and told firsthand about was the route that went from Beirut via Cyprus to Frankfurt, to London, to Detroit, or Houston, or Los Angeles.
It was supervised and surveilled by the German authorities. They knew that it occurred. I assume that the British government was aware that this had occurred. So there was a cooperation between three governments to monitor this activity. It's the German, the British, and the American government.
This 1986 Drug Enforcement Agency document, a meeting between Marty McGuire, Frankfurt resident DEA agent, and Mike Hurley, Cyprus resident agent. Already, all the key words, the Bakar, heroin, Syria, Cyprus, Frankfurt.
While this was going on, one has to remember that there were several hostages that were kept in Lebanon of many nationalities, and there was a strong effort to release them by negotiations which haven't worked out. At one point, the U.S. government entertained, the military entertained a possibility of releasing those hostages by force.
After the CIA station was blown in Lebanon, there was a mutual effort on the part of several agencies to sort of pick up the pieces, and at that particular time, DEA informants were also, the information they were coming out with was being passed on to the CIA station in Cyprus. So progressively, DEA informants were being used as assets for the CIA. So in essence, DEA informant was a cover for a CIA operation.
The old American embassy in Cyprus in the process of demolition. The great eagle seal torn from the wall, its miles of communication cables ripped out. Debris falling past Mike Hurley's ground floor office, as if even here a trail had to be destroyed. DEA Chief Mike Hurley would receive intelligence about the terrorist drug networks. That would go to the CIA. The CIA controlled the Special Action Group operating out of this apartment building in Wiesbaden, Germany. Operational intelligence to a group in Beirut. Matthew Gannon, CIA Chief of Station, and Army Major Chuck McKee trying to locate and rescue American hostages being taken in and out of the Bakar.
A lot of attempts have been made to release those hostages by contacting known figures in the terrorist work, drug dealers and known terrorists as Monza al-Qassar, who is related to the Syrian government by marriage, who lived and operated in both Damascus and Europe, and had experience in trafficking not only weapons all over the world but also drugs. They have assigned that mission to Monza al-Qassar. He helped gathering the drugs in the Bekaa Valley and helping the drugs going into the United States. He was an asset of the CIA.
I only knew him as Muhammad, Abu Muhammad. He was the person that had to facilitate the delivery of, there was a brown substance that's a precursor to heroin. They call it base or base. I think it's base. And that's what it's coffee colored and it comes in like gunny sacks. And he's the person that I met who facilitated the heroin across the Syrian border in the northern, the city of Ka in QAA in northern Lebanon.
Mansour al-Qassar is probably the most notorious, in the 80s anyway, gun and arms and drug supplier in the Middle East. Nothing went down in the Bekaa Valley related to narcotics, for example, without the explicit approval of Rifat Assad and Mansour al-Qassar. Nothing happened in the Bekaa Valley. Not the hostages, not the opium trade, not the heroin laboratories, not the cocaine processing labs. None of that could have happened without the express consent and involvement of Rifat Assad and the Pink Panther Brigade and his partner Mansour al-Qassar. And the Americans knew that.
Payments made to Mansour al-Qassar by Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. The account numbers and amounts. As new recruits are sworn in for the ongoing war, the guest of honor at the Hezbollah table of dignitaries, Ahmed Jibril. Jibril, who had airplane bombs in a terrorist cell in Frankfurt in October 1988.
When Jibril realized that operation was going on because he was participating in drug shipments and raising money through drug monitoring, so it was known, the players on the ground were known. He realized, very simple, that if he can gain access to one of the suitcases, of controlled, monitored suitcases, and put a bomb into it, the bomb would be put on plane, would be supervised by those who are supervising it, including all the law enforcement agencies that are making sure that nobody challenges the suitcase, nobody opens it, it goes through the security system, and all he has to do is just put it in that suitcase and the rest is history.
خالد ولد لا بيعرف بالمخدرات ولا بيعرف بالقنبلة ولا بيعرف بشيء. انجبر خالد يسافر على ألمانيا مطرح ما دبر له محمد جعفر، دبر له هو المسؤول بحزب الله، مسؤول عن سلة الكيال، دبر له القصة كلها سوا. قال له أنا بوديك لعند ربعي الفلسطينية تبع أحمد جبريل وغيره بيساعدوك بألمانيا وبتجيب مصاري وبساعتها بعطيك أختي. وضحك على